up? It's Chris from Chris Beat Cancer, and today I'm sitting with the Campbells, Cortney and Kevin. Anybody that has been with me for a couple years may remember Cortney Campbell because Cortney was the first person I ever interviewed that was a natural cancer survivor. And so if you go to the natural survivors section of my site, you scroll all the way down to the bottom, she's the first story. So, Cortney?
Yes.
Great
Chris.
to have you. Again, you're to be sitting on the same couch with Cortney. This is amazing. We're at the Healing Strong Conference in Atlanta. Today is Sunday. It's the last day, and I'm kind of sad because it's really flown by, but it's been really fun. And so Cortney and Kevin, we're very nice enough. We're nice enough to sit down on the couch, and she's going to tell kind of her story if you don't know it, and how she's doing now, and then we're going to talk to Kevin too. So, can you give us a quick version of your story, and so people can see, hear it?
Well, 5 years ago, I was diagnosed with nodular lymphocyte predominant Hodgkins lymphoma, stage 2. I know.
Yeah. What was that?
I've really gotten good at saying that. I, like any person diagnosed with cancer, I just wanted it out of me. That was my mantra. I just wanted it out of me. And after the doctors told us, you need chemo, you need radiation, some other stuff. We did all the conventional testing to confirm it. We basically, Kevin did not have a peace about any of that. And where I kept running up against a wall, like time after time again, was when they told us there was a 30 to 70% chance of infertility.
Yeah.
And I just, no matter how much I wanted the cancer out of me, and Hodgkins has a really good, cure rate, really successful, at least, to their numbers. We know about that. I just, that infertility wall every time just ran up against it. So it was Kevin who really was it was quite a God thing for us that he did not believe that chemotherapy was what was for us. There was something else out there. So he started investigating that, which led us down into the world of alternative treatments.
Well, and let me interrupt you. So Kevin, that's pretty unusual for a spouse to, be thinking outside the box, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Most spouses are like, oh, you got to do the chemo, you got to do, So, I mean, what was going on with you at that time?
Well, first of all, we had been married 3 months, and any couple who's newly married that gets a prognosis of infertility is going to have some reservations about the treatment. So for me, it began as, there's kind of two parts to this. For lack of a better way to describe this, I had an unshakable impression come into my mind while we were getting a tour of the chemo facilities at the hospital that basically just said, and it was perpendicular to the thought I was currently having as we were listening to the sort of tour guide showing us all the amenities of where we were going to, our nice plush recliner and all of these things. And it just said, this is not for you. And we're freaking out and trying to just figure out where we are and what is going on because things move so rapidly. The conveyor belt, as you say, just starts immediately, and you're just still trying to process all that's happened. And this unshakable impression, voice, clarity of thought, I just feel like it was, to me, just a calming presence of God saying, it's going to be okay. And it was very clear. It was in my left ear, and it said, this is not for you. So, and from there, we left the hospital, and that was it. And I was like, I don't know what it was, but I've heard this. I felt it was this thought. And Cortney is, of course, she's the one that's literally going through this. We're going through it as a couple, and yet I could not let that thought go. And for me, I felt like my job is now kicked in as husband, provider, protector, leader of our family to pursue other options. And so for me, that began with, okay, what other kind of maybe non-toxic therapies are there in terms of conventional therapies?
Clinical trial.
Clinical trials, pills, anything. And I looked all over. We had the church I worked at the time was offering to pay for us to go to MD Anderson and to cover our airfare and things. And that's like one of the best places you could want to go. And I had no peace about that. And I just felt I just was supposed to keep looking for something else. And I was raised with a worldview of always seek His peace, which surpasses all understanding. And I didn't have that yet. And yet what I felt like I was getting closer and closer to it was as we went down this road and pursued other, okay, well, if there's no answers in the United States, what is Germany doing? What is Spain or Japan or, what are other countries around the world? How do they approach this? And then eventually this led to, from step by step, to us finding out about some other people who didn't do any of these things. And I could go into that, but it's a long story.
Well,
and here,
but the takeaway is that you sort of you listen to your instincts and your gut and your conscience,
Absolutely.
and God speaking to you, the Holy Spirit speaking to you, and you, that still small voice, really, and you didn't ignore it, and neither did I. Right? That's my big story.
And for me, you guys were very clear on it from the beginning, but for me, who was still in that state of fear and that just get it out of me mentality, you have to really wait for that to settle.
Right.
And then make your decision, and that's so
and
important.
So for Cortney and I, we came to an agreement that we would give it 3 months, because this was not an easy decision,
Right.
and especially as newlyweds, her family doesn't understand our decision and thinks that I'm going to basically, lead their daughter down a path which is going to have a very bad conclusion. And so there's all kinds of pressure and advice coming in from all areas, and we just had to hold tightly to what we believed. And for Cortney and I, that was not immediately a consensus. So there was arguing, there was fighting, there was crying, there was just some tough things to work out. And through love, we were able to come together and say, okay, at the very least, we're going to give this 3 months.
So, Cortney, you were resistant to it in the beginning.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
But let me try to paint the picture. Just so he was like, no, you can heal. We got to try something that we had just been married. Look at these people. Look at these other people, and you were like, oh, no,
no.
I don't know what to do. Is it kind of like that?
It was totally like that, and we hadn't quite figured out communication yet. I think that's always as far as being newlyweds.
I've been married 12 years. We're still trying to figure that out.
Right. Right. So for me, and I totally recommend this. Well, it's a must for anyone who is the person who's diagnosed.
Mm-hmm.
You have to inform yourself. You have to at least read one book. I read Bill Henderson's book because
Cancer-Free,
Your Guide to Gentle Non-Toxic Healing, because it was just easy. It was an easy read, and he laid out a protocol, and I said I'm going to start here. And that's what I did. And as I became more informed, I became more confident. I could speak to the people that were sort of, coming in from all angles telling me that, oh, that's not a good decision, and, oh, aren't you afraid? And I had some confidence there to speak out to them and to explain and to teach about what I was doing.
Yeah, you've got to start reading and learning, and you have to educate yourself. That's like the step number one. And a lot of people are intimidated by that because, it is intimidating to relearn and to take control of your health when you know nothing, right? You don't know anything, and now you're like, I got to figure out how to heal myself. Like, where do I start?
Right.
But when you step out in faith and you rely on God to lead you, He will bring you people. He'll put people in your life. He will bring information to you that you need and that you can use, and that's what happened, right?
Yes.
So, at what point in the process did you find me?
I can't remember. I think I was Googling something. I was talking to my 4th grade students about always teaching about nutrition constantly, and that's one of the parents I get that's some of the feedback I get most is thank you so much. And I was talking to them about if you juice, if you eat and juice tons of carrots, you can turn orange, and they thought that was so cool. And so during my planning time that day, I went and I'm like, I wonder if I can find somebody online who's juiced and turned orange. And I found you. But not only was it, and at that time,
I didn't know that. You've never told me this part of this.
Yes.
Great.
You were an orange example for children and students.
And so I don't know. It must have been. We'd have to go back and look at that interview. Maybe 6 months, a year, or something.
It seemed like it was within the first year, if I remember right.
Right, after being diagnosed.
There's a post on my site called "I Juiced to Beat Cancer and Turned Orange."
Mm-hmm.
So obviously that's the post that she found. And then so she reached out to me and sent me an email and said, "Hey, thanks for the site or whatever." And I
had just started my blog.
And this is what I'm doing. I just started a blog too, and I was like, "Great, let's do an interview." And so. Anyway, you can read her interview. It's very long, very detailed.
And that was when we realized we had a lot of parallels. We were both 26. We were both pretty newly married.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Now, okay, so how long has it been?
It's been 5 years in 2 weeks, or next week.
Yep.
It's in
10
days or so.
Really
I know.
Come on.
I know.
That's great.
So we've
so 5 years, no surgery, no chemo, no radiation,
biopsy surgery.
And the great irony is that this cancer was one that we were told is supposed to be one of the easiest to beat with chemotherapy and radiation.
Right.
And in my mind, if it's so easy to beat with chemo and radiation, it must be even easier to beat with
that was our
nutrition and detoxification,
non-scientific
supplementation.
Just a little simple logical deduction, right?
Right.
Well, and you're right. Hodgkins, a cancer is not something to be afraid of, and neither is Hodgkins. The body created it. The body can heal it. We don't always know why, but the truth is that you can heal it. And in most cases, cancer is a result from a body that's starving for nutrition, nutritionally deficient because of a modern processed food diet, and stress is a huge component. And if you're under a lot of stress, like getting married is stressful, right? And maybe teaching or having a new job or whatever was going on in your life, but I was stressed when I was diagnosed. Anyway, that can bottom out your immune system, and if you're in a prolonged situation where you're under a lot of stress or you have a catastrophic stressful event in your life, that can be the trigger. That's like the straw that breaks the camel's back in health. And so a lot of people are unhealthy, and then they have this really traumatic event, or they find themselves in a really difficult, stressful situation, like going through a divorce or something, and that just sends them over the edge. Yeah. So anyway, I'm rabbit trailing.
Well, no, that's a huge part of that's one of there's 2 reasons I believe I got cancer at 26.
Yes, tell us.
And I struggle with doctors label it general anxiety disorder, where you're just anxious and you're on all the time, and your body has this cortisol and adrenaline, rushing through your body for a year and a half. And I was actually before I was a believer, and it brought me to the point where I just I experienced God in a way I never had before, and that was how I became a Christian.
And you gave him your fears, right?
Yes, and I did, and I got better, but my diet continued to be awful.
Yeah,
Standard American diet, like Diet Coke. Teachers love Diet Coke. It's everywhere in school. I think I've had a few converts to the green
class broom books. It comes.
Yeah. And everything you could think of. I'm sure many American women can identify with how I ate. But that continued, and so gradually the cancer progressed to the point that it did, and
again, the stress connection is huge, people. All right, so will you run down? We've got about 2.5 minutes before we hit the 15-minute mark, or really less than that. But anyway, can you run down your quick, just nutritional protocol?
Sure. Well, I did. Bill Henderson's really laid out that protocol. And then we added to it as we saw fit, specifically for what we read and researched. And over time, not all at once, I started adding different protocols that we felt were going to be good for healing from Hodgkins and from lymphoma. So beta-glucan we buy from Ancient Elements, which is what we believe the best source of the beta-glucan.
That's for immune support.
And the Budwig protocol.
Yes.
7 days a week.
Okay.
Cottage cheese, flaxseed oil.
How many times a day?
I did once in the morning. It's 860 calories.
Started out eating it like this.
What, half
a cup? And I couldn't keep weight on.
What was the ratio you did?
I did 2/3 cup cottage cheese to 6 tablespoons flaxseed oil. Okay. And I still do.
And you blend it up with a hand blender.
And I blend it with a hand blender. And nowadays, for the taste, I add a little chocolate stevia.
Okay.
Or you can add nuts. But after you mix it. Let's see, raw vegan. Other than that, raw vegan diet, organic raw vegan diet.
Yep.
Tons and tons of green smoothies for me because I did not eat salads.
64 ounces a day minimum.
He knows.
Of green smoothies.
I had 2 large mason jars.
Super nutrient dense.
Vegetable smoothies.
Wheatgrass, juicing wheatgrass juice.
Vegetables.
And Cortney's website is greendrinkdiaries.com. So she's got a lot of stuff on there about her green smoothies, about supplements she took, and just personal stuff about, kind of how she was feeling, what it was like going through the process. It's a great site. So,
Dr. Williams multivitamin was one. Barley greens.
We had probiotics in there.
Vitamin C. We did vitamin C. We did SECT.
Yes.
There's so many ways to approach cancer alternatively, and we were just looking at it like, hey, we were researching everything and then pulling the common denominators from different protocols and putting them all into ours, and then saying, hey, let's give the body everything it needs from a 360-degree approach to healing. to do what it needs to do to heal. I mean,
that's it.
And rebounding.
SCACT.
Coming to me.
Yeah.
SCACT. We said that. Okay.
Yeah.
There's so many.
You know.
Listen, go to her site, check it out. Plenty of good stuff on there. Subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I'm Chris from chrisbeatcancer.com. Thanks for watching.